Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I've already tried stitching her video and a bunch of other videos, but for some reason TikTok won't like produce sound when I stitch the videos, so I just decided to do it this way. I would also like to preface that I don't usually do story times. This is not what I usually post, so if this is sucky, my bad. Okay, so basically I'm a child of divorce. My parents have always been divorced, and we all used to live in California where my parents would co-parent. But then when I turned like 8, I think, my dad took his new wife and his 2 kids to Utah so that they could live there, which left just me and my mom in California. And then when I turned 9, she was sick of being the only one there with me, so she was like, we're moving to Iowa to live with my parents. She wanted to live in Iowa because she was trying to start a career out as a nurse, and she figured that my grandparents would be able to help her out starting that career. And they did, and we lived there with them for 2 years in a little town called Walnut, Iowa. And after the 2 years were up, she had started her career as a nurse, so we saved up money and we got our own apartment in Avoca, Iowa, which is 15 miles, I would say, up the road from Walnut, Iowa. So I'm about 11 or 12 by the time that we move into this house in Avoca, Iowa. This house is in, I would say it's like almost exactly in the center of town, and it's a very large white house, clearly very old. It was one of the oldest homes in the town. It was built in, I think, the late 1700s or early 1800s. And at some point, they converted the home into apartments. So they split the top and the bottom level, so they're each their separate unit now. When we originally moved in, we were given the top half of the home. This is also important to note, but we had a cat at the time. Okay, so anyways, when you walk in through the front door of the upstairs unit, it's on ground level, and there are interior stairs that take you up. When you reach the top of the stairs, you can either go right or left, and to the right is mine and my mom's bedrooms. Her bedroom was at the end of the hall, and my bedroom was to the side on the right. If you go to the left, you're met with a bathroom door, and through the bathroom door is a living room, but if you take a left at the bathroom door, there's the kitchen. Okay, so by the time we moved into this home, my mom has secured a job as a nurse, but she was working the night shift, which meant she was gone Monday through Friday from, I would say, 11 p.m. to 7 or 8 a.m., which would leave just me and my cat chilling there at home at night. And for a few weeks, I noticed that there would be random sounds coming from the house, random things falling where no one was in those rooms, and my cat would always act weirdly every time he heard something. It never really bothered me because I was just like, it's an old house, it's gonna make weird noises. But my cat seemed genuinely freaked out by it, and after about a month or 2 of living there, it wasn't just noises that were bothering him anymore. It was just random stuff. I would walk into a room and he would be in his territorial position with his back arched and his tail up, and he'd be meowing and hissing at this corner of the wall. It didn't really matter what room it was in, but specifically my room in the kitchen. Usually after his hissing and meowing fits were over, he would sprint around the house like he was being chased by something, and he had never done this before. He was an old cat. He was 15 years old at this point, and I'd never seen him act like this before. But I never told my mom about any of this because we just didn't have a greatest relationship when I was growing up, and also I was just what is she gonna do about weird noises and the cat being weird? After a few more months of living there, I noticed that every time I walked into my bedroom that I felt like I was being watched, or there was someone over my shoulder, hunched over me. I always felt like there was someone behind me. Also, the layout of my room is super important, so I'm gonna explain that real quick. So basically, you walk in through the front door, not the front door, but like my bedroom door, and the room was kind of L-shaped. There was like a narrow space, and at the end of the narrow space there was a window here and a window here. And like I said, the room was L-shaped, so you could either go into this narrow space or you could turn into this area, which was like a wall where I kept my dresser, and then on the other side of the wall was a closet to go in. My bed was in that narrow space where the windows are, so the back of my head would be at the front of this window, and if I turned this way, my head would be facing the window on the other side. One weekend when my mom was home, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday night. It was getting late and my mom was like, we need to go to bed. So it's like 12, maybe 1 in the morning when we finally get to bed. And as soon as I step into my room, I'm automatically just like, I have an uneasy feeling, and I'm just like, ugh, like, I don't like the way this room feels right now. Keep in mind, I am still like 11, 12, so I don't know what these feelings of discomfort are. I just kind of like brush it off and try to go to bed. Eventually, after a few hours of tossing and turning, I finally fall asleep. And then in the morning, it was about 6 a.m. I'd say. I don't know exactly, but I know like the sun was rising and it hadn't completely risen yet. I was woken up by something. I still don't know what woke me up, but I was awake. So after I'm like, okay, I'm awake, I turn my head because I kept my water bottle on the floor next to me. I turn my head to grab my water bottle, and I see a little girl staring out of my window. I only see the back of her, but I could tell she was wearing a white dress that was about mid-length, probably came to her knees. She couldn't have been older than 11, which was how old I was at the time. She kept her back facing me, and she was just staring out the window. She had tight bunched curls up here and a bow at the back of her head, which made me think, oh, like 40s, 50s era maybe. At this time, I still thought that I was dreaming, so yes, it scared me to see a little girl there, but I was also like, maybe this is a dream. After a few seconds of looking at her, she vanishes. Just gone. Poof, gone. I'm like, oh, that was weird. But then I see something out of the corner of my eye again, and I look. Next to where she was standing was the corner where that wall ended, and you could go into that divot where the closet is. At that corner, I see a man staring down at me. He has a black hoodie on and black sweatpants and dark eyes, dark hair, pale face, and he's just staring down at me. I, at this point, am like, okay, this isn't a dream, like, what's happening? So I keep looking up at him. Mind you, I'm laying in bed like this, looking up at him, because he's staring down at me. And at this point, I was just frozen with fear, staring back up at him, because I didn't know what to do. And a few minutes go by of me just staring at him, and I see yet again something out of the corner of my eye. And then I see a very tall Victorian woman with her hair pulled up in a bun like this. She had gray hair, and she was wearing a long maroon Victorian gown. She walked out of my closet and out of my bedroom door, and then she was gone. But I look back to the corner of my bedroom where I once saw the man standing, and he was still there, staring at me. He was the only one of the spirits that didn't leave. Now, eventually I get up the courage to turn and face my body, so I was facing the wall so I didn't have to look at him anymore. And after a few more seconds go by, I look behind my shoulder to see if he's still there, and he's right fucking there. His face is right by my face. So I screamed and ran out of my room into my mom's room, and I slept there for 2 months. I wouldn't go into my room no matter what for any reason. My mom didn't ever believe me until recently, but we did end up moving out of that house.